Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. I am Vikram. I teach history at Bahana College. And on behalf of the entire organizing team, I welcome you all to the sixth day of this online workshop, which is basically dealing with research methodology and academic publications, with special focus on the use of scientific tools and software. So in the last 5 days, we have had some very thought-provoking and highly interactive sessions on the logistics, methodology, tools, and all the nitty-gritty of research and publishing. So I hope our participants have been inspired by the rigor and the scope of the delivery deliberations. And I expect today to be no exception to the rule. So in our afternoon session, we are privileged to have with us Mr. Muralidhar from OUP India. He will speak on what publishers expect from submitted manuscripts. It's a very pertinent topic because those of us who actually dare to venture into the world of academia, one way or the other, we had to actually navigate the nooks and corners of the publishing world. And initially, this experience might be a bit daunting and perplexing. So to actually have a sense of how things roll in the publishing world, that too from an insider, may prove to be just what the doctor ordered. But before we go to our speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce him. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So Mr. Muralidhar is currently an editor in the school English language teaching section in Oxford University Press, India. Prior to this, he worked with Viva Books. He has a master's in English literature and a PG diploma in phonetics from Annamala University. He has worked on several series of textbooks as well as digital platforms. His interests include school ELT, EdTech, content creation, storyboarding, and conceptualizing, and in addition to that, lexicography. He has been involved in the world of publishing since 2016. Prior to this, he taught English for a couple of years in Gujarat. He's also a poet, and his work has been published in several literary journals and course books. As you can see, our speaker has an impressive resume and years of experience behind him in both teaching and publishing. So, Mr. Muralidhar, on behalf of Bahana College, I welcome you and I offer you my sincere gratitude for agreeing to join us today. And I hope our participants will greatly benefit from your expertise. But before we begin today, I would like to bring to everyone's attention that, like the previous few days, we also have a specific code for this session. The code for today's session is Kaziranga, Kaziranga. I repeat, the code for today's session is Kaziranga. Please note it down as it will be required later. I'd also like to request our participants to please keep their microphones muted while the speaker is delivering their address. And if you have any questions for a speaker, you can type them in the chat box of the Google Meet interface, or you can address them directly to the speaker once they are done. And now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Muralidhar for today's proceedings. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. সকলকে নমস্কার. It's really a privilege. I mean, most of you sitting before me are probably seasoned scholars and have been, publishing their articles and research work for, at least a couple of years. I should say. It's really a pleasure. It's really a privilege to be sitting before you and speaking on the topic that we are, that has been allotted to me. It's like it's the point where my role comes as a publisher. I mean, the topic that it has been it has been very appropriately placed at the end of all the discussions that you might have had. It's also because of the same reason that in the process of research, it all boils down to which publisher you're going to publish with, and what all they expect from what you are supposed. What you're about to publish. My presentation, the presentation that we're going to look at, is going to focus on the various aspects. Most of which you might have come across in the previous workshop sessions. there is quite high a chance that you might, I'd be repeating all that has been said, but yet, I mean, the thing is that it is important enough. These are the things that we as publishers would definitely consider, that you possess, that you include in your research work, so that it can feature on our journal, or among our publications, like, or among our publisher, like the books we publish. I request you to stop me at any point wherever there are questions. In any case, please feel free to just let me know. I'd be happy to answer. Have I been clear?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
Yeah. Without further ado, let me just go ahead and present what I have for you. Is everyone is able to see? Is everyone able to see?
Yes.
Is the presentation
Yeah.
visible to everyone?
Yeah, it's visible.
Hello?
Yeah, it's visible. We can see it.
Yeah, great. So before we move ahead, let me just recap through the process once. I mean, everyone knows what it is. Like, you create. I mean, you form your research. The ideation of your research, you bring it to a presentable level, and then you prepare a manuscript, and then you submit it, and then it comes to us for review, and we review it, and there are two possibilities. It's either we send there are three possibilities, I'm sorry. Either we ask you to revise it, we send it back to you, you make the corrections, and you send it back to us, or else, god forbid it happens, is your paper getting rejected, for which you might have to go back again and start all over if it is required. Otherwise, we give you a decision, we give you an acknowledgement, an affirmation, that a confirmation that we are going ahead with your paper, and we get it published on our journal, or as a book with us. So there are a few things that we would require as publishers that you follow. I mean, there are certain things that, this is just, I'm giving you an outline of what the things are that we expect from your research papers. The first thing is relevance. Okay, the first thing that we look forward to is that is the scope, is kind of the scope of your presentation, sorry, of your research work, that it holds value, it is original, it is relevant, it adds something to the table, it develops on a discussion that is already going on, instead of churning out the same material again and again, instead of going in circles and bringing out the same thing again and again. We would want our author to bring something new to the table, add something to the already established things, all things that are already that have already been established and said. And that is the first thing that we look forward to. The second thing is scope. That scope, as in terms of the journal, or in terms of the publisher. So each journal or each publisher has something that they look forward to. They have a limitation, they have a certain boundary within which they would like to publish. That is the responsibility of an author to see whether their material, their research work, falls into the scope of the publisher they're trying to publish with. Okay. I would recommend that you identify a journal that that can accommodate your work, that can go ahead with your work. That would probably be the first step of you know your process of approaching a publisher. This, one of the more, like, probably the most important thing as a publisher that I would say is your format and language. So each publisher has their own format, a certain style of writing, or certain requirements, certain grammatical requirements, certain expressive requirements that you need to follow. Make sure that your research work conforms to that style, conforms to that particular style. Sorry. Remember, I mean, which is what you write. I mean, what you write depends, the impact of what you write depends on how you write it. So you uh, uh, I mean, I have seen this because I have not edited scientific papers before, but most of my work has revolved around publishing ELT work. So ELT papers have come to me all the time when I used to work when I used to work with journals and research papers, when they used to come as a book to us. This has been reiterated, and a very redundant issue that we've been facing, that even from the most renowned or most established scholars, we have faced a lot of grammatical issues, with a lot of issues with grammar, with how it's presented, how it's written. So that has, sometimes that eventually that also leads to um, uh, you know rifts between writers and publishers, because of I mean, the higher a scholar is in their stature, it becomes more and more difficult to approach them in terms of correction, to say to them that their article needs correction. This is not something that we welcome, but we have been facing this quite very often. So it would be really I mean, we would be really great as publishers. We would be really grateful if you could work on the language beforehand, and then proceed to submit it with different publishers. Ethical standards, probably the most important thing there is, that your manuscript should follow all ethical standards, because if you don't check it, we are going to check it anyway. As publishers, it is going to come to us, and if we come across anything that violates ethical standards or falls short of the standards that as publishers have set, we might definitely send it back. We not might we will definitely send it back to you. It's not just about sending back. It is the bigger the margin of your error is, the bigger the size of your error is, the bigger your violation is, the greater risk it has to your reputation and your academic career. So this is something that you need to strongly stick to, adhere to, and follow uh, uh, every ethical standard there is, and follow it religiously. Has there been any question? I mean, is there any question that you would like to you would like me to answer before I proceed? Have I been clear enough so far?
I think we can take the questions at the end of the session. Once you're
sorry?
done, I think we can take the questions at the end of the session.
Okay. So am I being clear? Am I being clear enough?
I can hear you.
No, not in terms of voice. In terms of content. I mean.
Oh yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll move ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this presentation, the next few minutes of my presentation, I'll be speaking in three chunks. The first would be the conduct, the ethical standards that we spoke of just now. The second, after that, I would touch upon the content, the format and languages aspect that we spoke about. And the third is about the cover letter. That would probably be the conclusion before I start taking questions from you. So moving to the first segment, that would be conduct. I'd begin with plagiarism. I don't know why this text is wrapped to the next line. It was all right when I was creating it. I'm really sorry for this. Let's begin with the elephant in the room. Plagiarism is the most evident and the most common kind of ethical violation that we come across. I mean, now with effective platforms and now with effective technologies and effective techniques of detection, it has become really easy to detect dishonest work. So it becomes more and more important. The more the techniques are improving, getting better, the more strongly it is getting highlighted. The more strongly these issues have been coming forward, and there have been serious repercussions on the writers who have flouted these violations in carrying out a plagiarism in their work. I mean, we've heard examples from Uttarakhand University and where not. I mean, where people have been flouting all kinds of ethical. I mean, when it comes to plagiarism, people have been flouting all kinds of rules. So what plagiarism is, using somebody else's ideas, concepts, or words and presenting them as your own for your own benefit is what plagiarism is. Plagiarism can also include refraining from acknowledging the source. I mean, that is what it is, right? I mean, you pass something off as your own without letting people know that it is actually not yours but somebody else's. But yeah, thanks to the techniques that there are, I mean, it's not really easy to that it does not escape a publisher's eye. So I would seriously recommend as a publisher that you refrain from doing it. And not only it not only saves you time by or I mean, it's not saving you any time, right? It's actually hampering, actually affecting the originality of what you're trying to do. That is, I mean, it sets back your effort, even if you're doing it unknowingly. There are times where people plagiarize unknowingly, but that is not right. I mean, as research scholars, it's high time that you acknowledge this, and you make all efforts to minimize your margin. The different kinds of plagiarism is what I'm going to touch upon now. The literal I mean, there are different types. Plagiarism can be literal, plagiarism can be disguised, and plagiarism, there's something called self plagiarism as well. So let me just briefly touch upon all these things. Literal plagiarism is the most common form of plagiarism, the most common copy paste thing that we say. People either copy text verbatim from some other source without referring to it, or they copy paste and change a word or word sequence, or tweak a word or two to make it less similar to the original. Is what we call literal translation. Disguised translation is either disguised plagiarism is either translation or paraphrasing, where you totally change a paragraph, keeping intact the idea by either paraphrasing it or translating it from a different language. Or it may also include following certain structure that has been established as part of the research work, or the idea itself without acknowledging the source where it is copied from, or where it is based on. So there is also we also have technical disguise, where we try to hide our copied text or copied content by using similar looking characters, or kind of disguise it using the technical loopholes there are in detection systems. We call it technical disguise. So I haven't come across this so far, but yeah, this exists as well. Self-plagiarism is yet another kind of plagiarism, where people keep publishing their own work with minor or major changes, which is mostly done in order to increase your citation count. This we have come across several times, and we have written back and gone as far as rejecting people's manuscripts. People also do it concurrently. People keep consequently consecutively, people keep publishing their paper without citing back to it. Another case that we come across in this regard is publishing your publishing your articles in different journals at at the same time. I mean, or one after the other. I mean, there have been instances where people have published their research work in two different journals with minor similarity. I mean, with minor changes. And also there have been cases where people submit to multiple journals at the same time. I mean, without withdrawing. What happens is, like, if your research paper gets published somewhere, and you have already submitted your paper to another journal, it's very important that you, I mean, it's of utmost necessity that you withdraw your paper from the other journal, because your journal, your work, your research work being published in two different sources, in at two different journals or publishers, is a violation of your ethical conduct again. Credits and citations. So whenever in case of multiple authorships, in case multiple writers are working on the same paper, it is really important that you acknowledge them where, I mean, give them credit where it is due. Any kind of assistance to your research paper, your research work, is highly recommended. That it's highly recommended that you acknowledge them. The other thing is inaccurate citations that have not been consulted are being included either in the bibliography or in the reference section, or vice versa. I mean, you choose to skip out citations that you have referred. I mean, choose to skip out citations of books or references that you have consulted for your research work. There are times where you know you do not find a primary citation. I mean, if I read something in a book and I do not find where the original is, it is my duty to at least publish the secondary source of that thing, of what I have read. I mean, it needs acknowledgement anyway, right? If you're not able to get to the original source of something that you're writing, something that you've cited in your work, it is necessary. I mean, it is recommended that you cite the secondary source where it was where you came across it. Now we move to now let's speak about conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is when your research work might affect the publisher's review of your proposal. It could be anything. It could be financial, it could be professional, or even personal. I mean, some private agency might be funding you, or you might have someone from the reviewers panel, and or you might have personal relations with the publishers themselves. So it is really important that all of these things are disclosed. And in case I mean, it is always better to not approach publishers where there are vested interests. It is not it is important, or it is recommended that you distance away from any kind of conflict of interest when you're about to publish your work. It is highly recommended that your work is published as a standalone work. Yeah. It is mandatory that it is mandatory that you and your co-authors also disclose any potential conflicts of interest, and the journals that you publish will declare the same eventually when your work is published. So when your work is finally chosen to be published, the conflict of interest is even mentioned there. So once it is mentioned, there is no going back, and there could be some serious repercussions if legal repercussions if you're found having conflicts of interest after once it is published. Normally it doesn't go till that extent, but if it does, I mean, it's really going to backfire. So when you mention your conflict of interest, you mention all your job prospects of all the companies that you work with. I mean, all your employment, whether part-time or full-time, for the past 3 years until the date of your publishing, until your date of your submission. and any kind of research funding by private agencies or anyone, and that might impede, that might affect your submission, your publishing with that publisher. Any consultancies that you might be working with, or any of your current, I mean, any of your current or future job prospects that might affect your publishing, your research work with a certain publisher, that has to be those have to be revealed. Those have to be disclosed in your conflict of interest. And where do you declare? You declare your conflict of interest at the end of your manuscript, and in your or in your cover letter. In your manuscript, you put it under the heading conflict of interest statement, and you declare that you and your co-authors do not have no conflict of interest to disclose. Has there been anything? Have I been clear enough until now?
Yes, you are, sir.
Are there questions that we might need to address before we proceed?
There is a question
Uh-huh.
which is in our chat box, which is by Ms. Lopamudra Ghosh.
Okay.
So she's asking, how can disguised plagiarism be detected?
Disguised plagiarism, that is what I mean. Disguised plagiarism is something that is I mean, there are techniques, there are softwares that have come up, but technical disguise, I mean, technical disguise is something that is really difficult to be detected, but it is on the part of it is also on the onus is also on the writer, on the author, that they refrain from doing such things. I'm really not well versed with how how it works technically, but yes, I mean, ultimately, I mean, this is about this is about the author's responsibility. So I mean, we would generally expect the author to refrain from doing that.
Yeah, I think we can proceed.
Yeah. Coming to the content section, the content part. The first thing is write clearly and concisely. I mean, stick to, be very consistent in whatever accent you choose to, I mean, whatever style you choose to write in. I mean, if you're writing in American English, if it is required of you, please stick to the spelling, and please stick to the American style of writing, or British, whichever you choose, whichever the journal or the publisher requires you to stick to, please do, but be very consistent. Do not, usually what happens is the publishers, I mean, major publishers that you choose to publish with, they do not have time to, proofread the entire. They do a basic proofreading, but it becomes really difficult on the editors, on a publisher's part to, yeah, correct. I mean, it sometimes they have to practically, I mean, they can't practically rewrite your work. So before you send it to a publisher, ensure that it is as clear in terms of writing and as error free in terms of grammar before you submit. And publishers, yeah, that's what publishers do, reject manuscripts in poor English without review. They send it back. I mean, you can always seek help from grammar, grammar assistance softwares, or platforms. Like, you have Grammarly, you have Zoho Writer, you have Scrivener. You can always seek help from these, but in any case, please refrain from sending a content, sending a research work that is not in good shape when it comes to, I mean, in terms of grammar and writing. The formats that usually, I mean, the initial manuscripts that you send are usually accepted in the formats. I mean, just giving you, this might differ from publisher to publisher, but generally the accepted formats are PDF, docx, and RTF, rich text file. And eventually, when your publisher, they accept your manuscript and they say ask you to send a revised, a final version, then you send it in either the doc version or doc or docx version or RTF version. The next is structure. So most of you must be following the IMRAD structure of writing. I mean, I have come across certain scientific papers that follow the IMRAD structure, and I did a little bit of study since I am from an ELT background. I have not come across empirical papers as much, but IMRAD is one thing that I have come across very frequently from my peers from other areas. Structure, you are supposed to follow a structure. Your paper generally, usually a paper should have a title page, an abstract, an introduction, methodology, results, discussion, conclusions and implications, declaration of funding, conflicts of interest, acknowledgement, references, tables and table and figure legends. There are there are certain areas of research where these things are not required. I mean, not all of the things mentioned here are not required. So you can structure your formula. You can maintain your structure according to the one prescribed to your area of work. There are, I have worked with scope and purpose wala jo structure hota hai. I've worked with that. So follow that one, but be very precise about your structure, be very particular about your structure. The title page of your research paper, it has, keep it as brief as possible. Your title, it should have a maximum 120 characters, including spaces. Throughout your research paper, from top to bottom, try and avoid jargons as much as possible. Because your paper needs to be universal as much as specific. Don't keep it too esoteric that it only appeals to only appeals to a closed community. The aim of your paper, apart from what you are trying to establish or trying to discuss, should be just as much as universal as it is going to be topic specific. Use of abbreviations, again, use of abbreviations is better avoided, except for the more more commonly used ones. Title page, when while giving mentioning authors, use their full names. Do not use if their initials, including initials, if they carry initials in their names, please mention it along with the initials. And please be very very careful of how how you name. If you're supposed to use your middle name completely, do that way, and keep it, wherever, keep it consistent throughout your paper, because that is going to stay there. Do not give different versions of your names. It is going to cause confusion as you proceed with the reading and studying your paper. Institutional affiliations are supposed to be mentioned, where their position at the time of at the time when your research work is published, their positions need to be mentioned. Their title and position, positions as in which university they are affiliated to, which university they belong to. The titles and positions are not as such. The positions they hold are not required, but their affiliations have to be mentioned. The name, address, telephone and email address of the main author and the email address of the co-authors have to be mentioned. Do not forget to include any recent author. So it would always be better it is always better to use the most recent or the instance that it will be applicable when the research paper is published, when your research work is published. It is always better to use that affiliation for the author. And do not forget to include the country of affiliation, even though it has to appear twice in your mention. It should be mentioned each time with each instance where I mean, in case of multiple affiliations. You can look at the following examples. I mean, that this is how you're supposed to mention. I mean, even if it is, even if both the universities are in India, are in the same country, they have to be mentioned as many times as an affiliation is, for as many affiliations there are. So your abstract has to be maximum. I mean, it usually differs from ranges from 250 to 300 words, depending on the publisher, and try to stick to word limits, not only for abstract but also for your paper. Do not exceed the word limit. It is highly recommended. Focus on your background and objectives, methodology, findings, conclusions, and implications. Do not, I mean, do not try to explain your entire research work into your abstract. Do not try to put your entire abstract, I mean, research work into your abstract. Just give an outline of what you're going to deal with, and especially what the background, what the current state is of your research topic, and how you aim to expand on it, and how you aim to add to it. For non-scientific people, focus on the scope and purpose of your study. Do not include references or acknowledgements here. Do not use abbreviations here. Try to explain things. Try to keep it as clear as possible. Try to explain each and everything. I mean, each and everything as in terms of your what you're going to say in your research paper. Do not keep. I mean, try to wrap it up within your word limit, but make it give your outline as clearly as possible. Okay, the other key points is stick to your word limit, as I already said. Open well. I mean, give a very a good introduction, a helping introduction, a bridging introduction is very important. Your introduction should answer the question why you have embarked on this study, why you have chosen to work on this research paper, why a reader should study your work. What you have in what you have for the reader is something you need to establish in your introduction. And do not try to put a lot of information into your introduction wala section, because you are going to discuss it in detail anyway. So be very coherent in your discussion. क्या बोलते हैं? Do not there needs to be a flow in terms of both language and logic. Coherence and cohesion, both these things are important. While it is important that in terms of language and terms of grammar, there needs to be a certain flow between paragraph, between each paragraph. I mean, between two paragraphs. It is also important that there is a logical bridge between each of them. So there can't be jarring paragraphs or jarring explanations coming out of nowhere. Keep it as logically connected as possible. A very effective way of going about it is beginning your sections with a pertaining question or pertaining questions, and proceeding to answer each one of them towards the end of that section. So as you go on, as you proceed, as you near the end of that section, make sure that you've answered the questions that you've posed in the beginning. So that makes a very effective read. That makes a very helpful read as well. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. The other thing is, please gloss your key terms as you go. There needs to be explain all the key terms so that it is more accessible to the public. It is not confined to the people that who are from your area of research. Instead, I mean, try to make it more universal. Try to make it more accessible by glossing all the keywords that you include in your work. So, sorry. Publishers have their own format or style for article text, the main text, references, tables, and figures. Stick to the format prescribed by whomever you choose to publish with, and cite references and tables sequentially in the order of their appearance in your work. So do not be very random about it. Be very, be like everything should be given in the right order. There would be a section where you would list all your tables, right? So even there, it has to be in the same order as it appears in your research work. So maybe okay. The next section is cover letter. So before we begin with this, has there? I mean, is there a question that needs to be asked? Hello.
We don't have a question yet, so maybe we'll have them after the session, because often people ask questions once the session is over or once you are done addressing.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So have I? I'm asking the people if the people listening. Am I clear enough? Hello.
Yeah, you are. People are
Yeah. Yeah.
replying.
Okay. 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 I'm not able to hear anyone. So. Okay.
I know. And they're actually posting on the chat box.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So see, the next section is your cover letter. Cover letter is so I have seen people. I have peers who have submitted their journals on submitted their journals online, and there have been people who have said they do not have. I mean, they did not have to submit a separate cover letter as such, but however, they were asked to establish why they would like the journal or the publisher to publish their work. Even though that basically forms the intent of a cover letter, it is not named such. But however, since the concept of it is required, I would choose to elaborate on this a little. So a cover letter is what your is what I would call pitching your work, right? I mean, so you are basically telling your publisher why they should choose to publish your work. Why, what and so that includes uh, again, that includes why you're doing this research work and how it adds to the table and how it is of importance to the publisher, who would eventually want to publish it. So you are going to describe your interests and the publisher's interests in your cover letter. So Oxford University Press, Oxford suggests that your cover letter recommend potential reviewers well versed with the subject of your manuscript, of your research work, as well as up to 3 people who you would like to exclude as potential reviewers. This is also to refrain from ending up in conflict of interest. The contents of your cover letter. Keep it as brief as possible. I mean, it should not cross a page. Usually, in any case, keep it within 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph can include your introduction to the manuscript, the introduction to your manuscript, and explaining the purpose of your study, and why it is significant, maybe. And you can proceed to declare that how your work is original and that it has not been published or is under submission elsewhere. Declare that your work does not involve any external influence, that is conflict of interest. The don'ts of a cover letter is we do not need 2 abstracts. Please do not copy paste your abstract into your cover letter. The intent of both is different. Abstract is for a different purpose. The cover letter is for a different purpose. Do not try to bring both of them. It is really redundant and it is really, it is something that we would not want to go through. Cover letter is basically your promotion. You're pitching the idea. You are approaching us. You are trying to convince us why we should publish your work. So let your cover letter stick to that. Second is keep it simple. Avoid excessive use of jargons or abbreviations. Again, as has been repeatedly, has been reiterated throughout across this presentation, is that keep it as clear and transparent for universal readers as possible. Stay on the same page, quite literally. I mean, wrap it within a page. Do not exceed the limits of a single page, not extend beyond a single page. That also that also exhibits how gives us an idea of how grammatically and how content wise how powerful your writing is going to be. So um, it's a win-win anyway. If your cover letter is right, if your cover letter is perfect, we might get a basic idea, an idea of at least of your how your writing is going to be inside your paper. Save us the proofreading. Keep it as grammatically clear as possible, legible, and with correct use of language. So the checklist ultimately would be of your structure. You have to see that you following all the structures and components. I mean, structure that the proper order of things that are supposed to be included in your research paper and research work, your manuscript. The components that you need to include your acknowledgement and whatever that is. All these things are in place that you have to ensure. Conduct is like you have to make sure that you have avoided plagiarism, you have credited your people properly, you have cited your references correctly, and you have declared your conflict of interest. Content wise, there needs to be cohesion and coherence that I have already put forth, that your your content needs to be logically in a flow. It can't jump places. It cannot go back and forth and be all over the place. And your grammar, your content has to be thorough in terms of grammar. You can always seek help from your peers and to get your content straight in terms of writing. But when you are submitting your work to your publisher, make sure that you are free from you and us, both us are free from that burden of you from the pain of having to review it and make corrections to your paper, and us from the pain of practically rewriting it. Final thing is cover letter, if it is applicable, if you choose to, if your publisher requires a cover letter, do spend enough time. I mean, dedicate some time to prepare a good cover letter. So I wonder, have I been running throughout the course?
Sorry?
Have I been very fast in speaking?
No, you're not.
Okay. So have I been both audibly and in terms of content clear?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. So any questions that need to be shot can be shot.
All right. So I think we can move towards the questions.
Yeah. Please do. Do.
So now we invite questions from our participants. So the questions can be posted in the chat box of the Google Meet interface.
Okay. Please, someone please help me with the chat box.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
Or
yeah,
instead,
I can see that. I can see that.
Or instead, the participants can unmute themselves, raise their hands, and switch on their video and ask the speaker directly if they wish.
Yeah, that can also be done.
Yeah. So we urge the participants to actually keep your questions brief, precise, and to the point, if possible.
Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, it's not really a question, but out of curiosity, I want to
Yeah,
know,
sure.
yeah, as a publisher, what's the first thing that catches your eye when reading a manuscript? You know, that makes you want to recommend it for publication.
glaringly glaringly it has to be grammatical errors, and when it comes to format and structure, it sometimes misses our eye, because when it comes to me, if you personally ask me this question, because as I mentioned earlier, I have only been I have primarily been working on ELT papers, ELT research. So the the structure and the format of the paper is usually not what I have worked on. So I have so I'll tell you what, my most of my publications have been poetry. So
Yeah.
my poems have majorly been published. I have only published one prosaic research work. So I have followed the MLA. I use so when I submitted, I was supposed to work on the follow the MLA format, MLA pattern. So I am quite well versed with it. I have an idea of what that is. I have come across papers that are based on the CMS, the Chicago Manual Style. So these things are, we have a manual with us, and then we look back and forth, and then do all these things. So these things come later. The first thing that strikes my eye personally is grammatical errors, and I'm very particular about it, because there have been times that I have practically rewritten papers. I have rewritten as many as 6 to 7 papers. I've had to do that, both Indian and international. So that is something that always, sticks out like a sore thumb. That has so far been the biggest problem coming across papers.
Yeah, thank you for your lecture, sir. I have one question regarding.
Yes. So yes, sir.
Suppose as a publisher, you as
Okay.
a publisher, you receive a article, and the findings of the articles are very much qualitative, means high quality findings, and these are all new findings and all these things.
Okay.
But there is some grammatical errors. So straightforward, you will reject the article,
No,
or
that is no. We will not straightforwardly do that, because see, the thing is, even if it is an empirical work of research, or क्या बोलते हैं, if it is more discussion based, if it is more theoretical, it is our duty to I mean it in I'm saying this from my perspective, because when I used to work on these research papers, my intention was to refrain from sending it back to the writer, because it is pain on it is time taking for us, it is time taking for the entire process of publishing, and it is also it is painful when it comes back to the writer. See, so our suggestion and our request to all our scholars is to be as grammatically precise as possible, but a minor glitch here and there, a minor issue here and there is not a concern, is not a problem at all. We are always here to set it right, and make you happy as well. I mean, give you a response to a positive response to you, to all your efforts. But it is also on a responsibility on the part of a writer, that there are people who ki हाँ मेरा content तो अच्छा है, I mean sorry, that my content is okay, the content is fine, as you said, right? My tables are perfect, my empirics are my statistics are perfectly in place. The language is substandard. Only if it is substandard, it will come back to you. If the
and
writing,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and vice versa. Suppose all the grammars are correct, all the languages are correct, and they have high quality language jargons and all these things, but the contents are not that
Then
much
it is
good.
definitely going to come back to you. Then it is definitely. I cannot fudge your numbers, can I? I
Yeah.
cannot fudge your numbers. So that is your responsibility. If that is found to
No,
be
actually,
wrong,
my point is on publishers gives emphasis on
see
which
the
one
publisher
first.
when it okay. The publisher has to look at everything. So there is a checklist for us as well, right? So we have to tick mark on everything that comes. So I manage up. I mean the checklist that I showed you in the end is something that we look forward to as well. It's not only your thing. So मैंने जैसे बोला था, as I said earlier, when it comes to us, the things that we require you to do are the things that we also require, and are the things that we also look into. Okay, so it works both ways, right? So if you think it is okay, but we don't think it is, we either correct it depending on the degree of error. If it is passable, then we work on it and we send it forward. But if we eventually find that the statistics are wrong, the numbers are wrong, the numbers have been fudged, that is wrong. That amounts to ethical violation, right? So it will come back to you. It will come back to you, and then you'll have to rework it. And then maybe it is not ethical violation. Maybe there is a 19-20 ka farak, as they said. That's a very marginal error. Then it will come back to you. Ki, bhaiya, dekho, this is going wrong. You can just correct it and send back to us, provided it is not deliberate fudging. Provided it is not a violation of conduct there. Provided it is not plagiarized. Your content is not plagiarized.
Thank you so much. But I have another not query, but I just want to
Please
ask you.
Please
Suppose
go.
nowadays there are so many government protocols, like you have to make a publication in UGC listed journals for your APC and all these things. So people are running after this number of publication, quantity, not many are not thinking about the quality. Not I'm not saying to all, but many are not thinking about the quality. They only think about the quantity. And there are so many journals who publish papers by taking APC or publication fee. So what is your view on that matter? If you share your views so that participants can enrich their
I mean,
knowledge.
your answer, the answer to your question is in your question itself, right? I mean, you are, it is ultimately your choice whether you decide to go with quantity or you decide to go with quality, right? So
No,
I mean,
the thing is, suppose I'm a assistant professor of some college, and by the next year I have to publish one journal in UGC Cal listed journals. Otherwise, my promotion will be something like this. Promotion will be
okay,
hanged or like this. So,
okay.
in that case, what we do,
I would
we
recommend,
would go for a journal who takes charges and publish it within 1 month.
I would still ask you to. I would still suggest that you go for indexed journals. That is a more safer bet, I suppose. Instead of going to private journals, where the question comes, it's just the same thing, right? You go into a self publisher. You go into a publisher like who takes money and just publishes your work, irrespective of the quality that it possesses. So look, okay, even if your work is of really good quality, I would not suggest that you do it for money. You can always you always have the have the opportunity of going to reputed journals. You can always have a shortlist highly indexed journals, and then you can approach. I understand there are, sometimes people of your stage or people in your position are time bound, but that is, when you go to the long run. I mean, when you look at it in the long run, because it's not just about publishing, right? It is also about citation. When you publish your work should be eventually cited at several places, so that your reputation or your validity as a publisher, I mean, as a published author increases. It is an investment. It is an academic and intellectual investment that you're making. So if you I mean, if taking such a step, the one that you cited, the one that you mentioned, puts at risk your eventual reputation, your academic reputation. I mean, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the explanation. Exactly, that is what I was looking for. Okay, thank you.
Uh, Mr. Morila, there is another question in the chat box by
How
Miss
important is
Tanushree
title?
Harungam.
Yes.
I think you
Okay.
can see that.
This is from the previous session, isn't it? Um, okay. I would definitely say. I mean, it depends. It depends. If you want, if you so I my title, the only research paper that I published had kind of a catchy title because it requires there. I mean, my ultimate even I mean so my research paper is based on literature, and when it comes to literature, it's all about words, isn't it? So I chose to stick with words. I chose to play a little bit with words. So my title was catchy. So see the context. If it is more empirical, if it is more you know if it is more informative, choose a more serious title. If you're trying to discuss something, trying to if you're trying to analyze something, I mean, keep your frame your title accordingly. I mean, it's really not a it's a matter of perspective. Ultimately, it's only a matter of perspective. I think it that way. If you are lightheaded, if you love humor, you can choose. I think we are going past that trend where we're sticking to a certain dogmatic name format, where it has to be this, it has to be your research work has to be considered formidable, because the content the thing that you want to explain is inside, is not on the title. But your title should act as a bridge to to the reader's mind. It should be the gate to the reader's mind, right? So your title leads to your introduction leads to your content. So if you can frame your title according to that, there's nothing better. Have I been able to answer your question properly?
So we can actually use alliterations or wordplays in our titles.
Alliteration, you know what, alliteration is sometimes irritating,
Yeah, that's why I'm asking actually.
It is because alliteration not only, it catches your eye, but it catches in a very glossy manner. It's a very in a very irritating way. So they usually, I mean, alliteration is something I'd ask you to refrain from. But sometimes it is required. There are when we're speaking about poetry, when you're speaking about poetic theories, and and especially when it concerns sounds, onomatopoeia or alliteration or such kind of things, or refrains, these things become more catchy. They have a certain place. Don't bring that style out of place. So if I'm doing a research work on 18th century Victorian literature, or something prior to that, and if I'm trying to discuss Shakespeare's work, and I'm trying to use an alliteration there, when it is supposed to be a serious work, I mean, it is a complete turn off. Your alliterative heading is going to be complete turn off. So that is not something I would recommend. It's only a matter of style. It's only a matter of style. But don't go out of place is what I would say. Even I am very fond of alliteration, and I've tried to use a lot of. I like to do that once in a while, but it does go. It goes overboard sometimes. And when it comes to research work, it is better to use it only where it is required. But use it when it is required. I would do that. I would say that as well.
All right. We seem to have.
That's what. So Tanushree has replied that she's a literature student, and as a rule, we have to be more creative with words. Not as a rule, it becomes an attitude as such. I mean, it reflects your attitude. The more you are into languages and literature, that tries to come out, right? So that definitely spills onto your work. That it's okay if it spills onto your title as well. I don't see it as a problem, as long as it doesn't seem out of place. Yes, someone else had a question.
Yeah, we have
yes,
another
sir.
question.
Yes, sir. I am Kasturi Goswami, and I teach economics at Bahana College.
Okay.
So, sir, my question to you is, so from the ongoing discussion, it's just a query actually.
Okay.
So what I have seen is that, like our Anupam sir has already said that it is a matter of promotion or getting into a college or something like that. You need certain amount of publications which has to be on the UGC care list or has to be in the Scopus indexed. But what I have seen through the process was that many of the good journals, they don't get reflected in the UGC care list, but some of the journals, they are reflected, and maybe they are paid journals, and it is reflecting there. So, and the second thing is, sometimes for some editions it is reflected in the Scopus, and then maybe you see that after a few months or years it gets discontinued. So in that case, what as a publisher would be your advice to our young researchers? Although I'm very sure these days researchers are very much aware of everything else than when we started off. What would be your advice on how to go about it? Because it is just not related about your academic intellect in the future, but it is also sometimes related to getting a job or something more important, or I would say, how do I place it, I don't know, but something like that, on those areas. So how to be your suggestions to researchers and other people and so forth?
Okay, calling it a risk to take would not be a right thing to say, but yes, I would suggest that you look for the journals. I mean, UGC acknowledged journals, and try to find the best among them and then publish your work. I mean, so even if you are, I mean, if there is a bag of you know. It's like choosing the least spoiled, I mean, the least stale slice of bread among a basket of stale bread, slices of bread, right? So sometimes, I mean, not all, don't take me, please don't cite it as interpret it otherwise, but see, choose the best of the lot that you have, choose the best option that you are supposed to, when you're obliged to publish in a UGC acknowledged journal. See the best you can, find, shortlist the best journals there are, and then publish. But at the same time, also lay equal importance to journals that have been highly indexed and are very popular among. So you must be having an idea, right? So you are, say, you are into economics, then you must certainly be having an idea of, of, uh, of all the different journals, economic related to economics there are, right? Whether they are cited, whether they have been acknowledged by UGC or not. So try to keep a balance between both of them, publish in both of them equally, and see the ones that are. So if I publish with a UGC acknowledged journal today, and if it does not appear on it tomorrow, yeah, I mean, at that point of time that might have been a problem, but when you applied it, it was recognized by the UGC. So I don't think that should really be a problem. But at the same, and at the same time, the ones that are not listed, that have not been listed in the journal today, might be there. It is all about, I mean, even UGC is expanding and exploring its catalog. So do not take this as an impediment, but I would only encourage to approach and publish your work, because it's your hard earned, it's something you've earned out of sheer hard work. So the place that it belongs to should be a place of respect as well. uh, yes, okay, it might. So you can always approach UGC acknowledged journals, and you can have your have your work published. But at the same time, also look for journals that are that are not on the list but are also highly respected. Because I mean, we never know, because yeah, that's what I said, right? The catalog is expanding. It'll as we keep, as years pass by, there would be more and more journals, there would be more and more publishers joining the list. So it is going to be fruitful, not now, If not now, then in the long run. So you have to, keep a balance between the ones that are currently available and the ones that have immense potential of being on the list. Have I made myself clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, I just have one more question to you. Rather, it's a query because see there has been an onset mushrooming of many predatory journals. So,
Yes.
what
The
are
one
your
that
views? Yes, what are your views on it, and how do, as researchers, we distinguish between the predatory ones and the real ones? Like, what criteria should we look for while distinguishing between the two?
Okay, I haven't come across this as a situation because no, so it okay, this is quite a tough question. See, instead of going for the see, there are these okay, there is always a list of index journals, like there are libraries, there are online libraries where journals are published, where you have JSTOR, you have Wiley online library, you have Cambridge you have library. You can always seek these platforms. This is one thing that I would say. If I were in your place, I would do this. um, uh, there I would definitely go to these repositories and see filter my subjects and see which journals have they have included, which journals they have acknowledged, and then approach those people. That is number one. Number two, when it comes to Indian thing, either when it comes to the Indian context, now there are then I seek the UGC labeled ones, and I approach them. There might be predatory journals, as you say, but I haven't really come across them. But if I were you, I would definitely look them up on the internet. I would do prior research. I would go about asking my peers if they have come across. It's a very weird world, right? Um, ultimately it's our teachers, it's our peers that are going to help us. um, I don't know if there are effective measures of finding these people out, finding these predatory journals out. But the most effective form as of now, in my opinion, is asking people around, asking your peers around, doing
So
research, and then
there are two, three things we can do.
please go ahead.
Yes, first of all, we have to check the indexing of the journal. If it is indexed in the like Scopus or like UGC Care List or something like Web of Science, then we can
Exactly.
go for this journal. And the second thing is, no such quality journals they do advertisement with publication within 1 week, within 30 days,
Exactly.
or like this. So these things only the predatory journals do this kind of advertisement, and with a publication charges, not FPC. They are demanding for publication fees, not article processing charges. Okay. So they demand it in advance. Many journals they demand in advance, and you have to pay like as minimum as one from 1,000 to 30,000 also. So
Oh,
you have
okay.
to pay advance, and within 1 week your article will be published. They send mail like this, and most
Okay.
of the predatory journals send you email. But no such good quality journals never send email to the authors that we have this journal, you can submit your articles, because they already receive more than 1,000 2,000 articles in one issue. So they never send emails to the authors, and these predatory journals they always send email to the authors.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, these kind of things we can consider while while selecting the journals, whether it is a good journals or a predatory journals.
Thank you very much, sir. This is also information to me. This is also news to me. Certainly a lot has changed since I last published. I last published in somewhere around 2015, and it clearly seems that a lot has changed since.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
But
Okay, Bongo sir, you're saying.
But one thing that Anupam is saying, that we can identify that this is a predatory journal or this is a not predatory journal, or it's a good journal. This criteria sometimes may fail, because last year I was talking with one of my colleagues and he said that he know a journal. It's a world-class journal, and
Okay.
they charge around 1,50,000 per article,
Oh,
but they have very high indexing.
okay.
So we cannot say that just because they are charging money, they are taking APC. They are very bad journal or predatory journal, or they don't have a referencing
No,
or good
but
citation.
yeah,
So this cannot be an universal truth.
no,
This
not
is what
universal,
I.
but the thing is, the only you will find a few journals like this that they have charged a huge amount because their impact factor are huge and they are the commercial journals. But what happen if you can see in the Facebook also nowadays, in the Facebook, WhatsApp group, you will find that many journals are like this. Many people are posting that we will publish your article within 15 days. Contact with us, and they have given their phone number. So while you contact, first of all they will ask for money, like your publication fees will be this much, and your your article will be published within 1 week. They will guarantee you, and also they will publish also. I have a example. One of my I will not say his or her name. I know some person, one person. So he published his 2 articles in the same journal within 1 week, and these also is Scopus Index journal. And when I went to this website of the journals, I found $250 is the article publication fees.
Oh my God.
$250, and in many states the provision is you for to get a job. The provision is you must have 3 Scopus Index journal article or 2 Scopus Index journal article. For grading system, there are points on this article, Scopus Index or UGC care listed journal. So what we do means like the job seekers, what we do for to get this job, we have to publish journals in Scopus Index or UGC care list. That time what happened, we look for a journal who can publish our article within 1 month or within 1 week. That time we never think about this money, because once we get the job, we can get the salary also. We will have the salary. So that time we don't think about the money. So many people do that, but those who have sufficient number of journals articles in their publication list, generally they never do this kind of things. But for the new researchers, few researchers, I also seen this. I've also seen that few researchers they do like this. They pay the money, and then they get the publication.
The conclusion may be that the lucrative offers indicates that this journal may be a predatory journal.
Yes.
One conclusion may be that, and secondly,
Yes.
we may draw another conclusion from here, that quality choosing a predatory journal or a high index journal is subjective to the author. Means if I wish to publish something in a very short span of time, within 1 month or within 1 week, then it will be very difficult for me to publish it in a very reputed journal, because the journal already have a long list of waiting journal papers.
Yes.
So it will be difficult for me to publish within 1 month or within 2-3 months. So
Exactly.
if I'm looking for a quick publication, then I may go for a paid journal. And if I'm looking for a very good citation, high indexing of my article, then I have to wait, because I am in the queue, not in the first position of the queue. So this may be another conclusion from this discussion, I think.
Citation is something that is
another
really
thing
important.
You can check. Suppose I'm going for a publication in a journal, so far I can check the articles already published in the journal and their quality. If the quality of the articles is very good, that means the journal is we can say that the journal is good. Otherwise, if the quality is not that much good, that means the journal is not that much good. That may be one of the conclusion.
Yeah, it all depends on it all depends, everything depends on your citation, right? The more credibility, the more credible place your research work is in, the more citations you receive, and that is what established your that is what the fruit of your research work is. So
Yes,
even if
but
you're
regarding citations, sir, I would like to mention one thing. I have seen that many articles, the quality is not that much good, but the name of the authors, like he's a professor or a retired professor or associate professor, and with his he has written article with his research scholar. So the research scholar also get automatically cited by this
that
article.
that is
The
kind
number
of
of
a that is
citation increase.
yeah that's
Yeah.
yeah, please continue, I'll
Yeah,
say in
so I have also seen that the quality of the journal article is not good, but the name of the author, but as the name of the author is so popular and is a good professor or something like this, so his article, many people cite his article due to his name and due to his knowingness. Means he's been known by many people, so everyone wants that. Oh, I know this sir, so okay, I will cite his.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
It comes to
cited
vested
the
interests.
article.
Yeah, having vested interests with a
Yes,
writer or
yes, I have seen these
yes.
things.
I've come across this as well.
Mhm.
I have come across.
All right.
Okay. Are there
Uh,
any more questions?
yeah, there is one more question. I think it's a two-part question. I think it's also, I think you better replied it this
Okay,
as a,
Lopamudra Ghosh, right?
yeah.
Okay. How to get any short story accepted for publication? How to avoid complicated plot structure and sustain the reader's suspense all throughout the story? The second thing is a different question altogether. But how to get any short story accepted for publication is, again, it comes back to the scope. Look at the scope of the journal that you're trying to publish with, and if they have there are certain publishers who who started out as low indexed journals, and they gained credibility as with time, and now they are functioning as reputed journals, but they still stick to their intention. There are many, so those publishers are people who try to promote as many literary works as possible. I mean, as many literary creations as possible. So there are they go through a blind review. They go through double blind reviews, and then they get published. But there are articles. So when it comes to short story writing, I would still recommend to always seek journals, seek publishers who are into stories primarily. Like if there are journals that are exclusive to story writing and short story writing or prosaic writing, I would recommend that you approach you shortlist them and send your story and see if it gets accepted. Because there are some journals that are into a certain genre. So if you come across a journal that is not really genre specific, then it should be a good option for you. When it comes, and for your second question, how to avoid complicated plot structure and sustain the reader's suspense all throughout the story. So I assume that you're writing a detective novel or a crime novel as such. So when it comes, storyboarding is a very important thing. Storyboarding is something that solves half your problems. So if there is a proper background to all your characters, if there is a proper background to, because each the character sketch of each of the stories leads to the story as well. So you know what a certain character does. If you know each of your character does, it becomes easy to then place the jigsaw. That it becomes easy for you to restructure a story if it is required, and then it makes a good thing. Complicated plot structure, see, that's what I mean. If your characters have a good sketch, they kind of resolve that they that the tangled situation that you might get into. It is quite a good solution for that. It helps you from getting stuck in anywhere in the randomly in the middle of your story. So keep your character sketches very clear, your character backgrounds very clear. Apart from that, another thing is uh, read more stories. I would suggest. I have not seriously written. I'll tell you what. I'm seriously. I'm into poetry, so I do not have much of an idea about writing a story. But from the experience that I have read, I mean that I've acquired from reading, is that you maintain you your resolution must be heavier than the complete process. So that again brings me to the same thing. Your characters need to be very clear in their intent. Keep your devise your before you start a story, you devise on what your characters, who your characters would be, and what their psyche and what their actions would be. And when you put them in place in your story, because you would have a basic plot anyway, right? So when you put them in your story, things will fall into place. There might be things where you have to arrange your characters like the jigsaw puzzle, but if you do that correctly, I think uh, you would end up with a good suspense story. Is as easily as I can put it. Have I answered your question, Ms. Lupamudra? Hello.
Yeah, Bikram, there is a question from Dhrubajyoti Borgohai also.
Oh yeah, this was actually we skipped it.
Dhrubajyoti Borgohain. Can we
Yeah.
bring the equilibrium between can we
Quality,
bring
quantity.
equilibrium between quality and quantity? For quantity, it may have quality of its own. Yeah, definitely. That's what I mean. You see, I mean, if I have 10 people before me, I mean, if I have 10 people before me, I know I'm going and I'm supposed to disclose my secrets to any 3 of them or any 5 of them. It is going to be the ones that I trust the most. So I would that would be an advice. I mean, okay, you can publish in as many journals as you can, as you want, but it has to be credible places. You check for the credibility. If they are reliable, if they are reliable sources, then it is really going to be a good thing. But if not, then quantity will not stand. That quantity will not is not going to stand. Hello. Did I answer? Have I answered your question, Mr. Drupjyoti?
So I have got the query. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, organizers, can I? One, I have heard. I have gone through the discussion regarding that fact, predatory journal and like that. Can I put one in that case? If organizers have...
Yes, definitely. Welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Actually, one thing regarding that APC or predatory publishing, because I belong to an information science background, so it will be.
Okay. I'm
So
sorry, your
there
voice
are
is
many
breaking.
journals actually like. Hello.
Can you please repeat? Voice was
Audible.
breaking.
Hello, am
No,
I
it's still
audible now,
breaking.
sir?
Yes. Tell me. Please tell me. Can the others please mute their speakers? I mean, I'm getting a lot of noise. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Drupjit.
Yes, sir. There are many reputed publishers I came across, like, for instance, I can give the example of this Frontiers. So
Okay.
they are publishing articles after acceptance. They search some APC or they ask for some publication search, and
I'm sorry,
these are
publication
not
charge.
actually predatory. So we need to, I think we differentiate between that predatory and this APC?
Oh,
Because
Dhruva, there is
people
one
may
thing
think that
yes, Dhruva, there is one thing.
because some research
Many
this 100
journals charges
yes
APC, but the thing is, all the journals do not ask you like we will publish your article within 1 week. Those journals who tell you
yes yes
that we will publish your article within 1 week or within 2-3 days, acceptance today accepted, and within 2-3 days publication.
yes
Most
yes
of
yes
these journals are
mm-hmm.
predatory. Many journals ask APC. APC they have the processing. They may
Yes,
have the
many
processing
reputed companies
charges.
like Wiley. Yes, yes,
Sir has
yes,
spoken
yes.
my point out. Sir has
There are two factors.
And
These
one thing,
two factors we have
yes,
to compare these two factors. Either if both the factors are there, that means you have to think that these journals may be predatory. Or if
yeah, maybe,
only the
maybe.
APC charges, if as Pankaj sir has said that one journal asks 1 lakh
Yes, yes, yes,
50,000. So this is not a
yes,
predatory
yes,
journal, but
yes,
their
yes,
quality is that much high.
yes, yes,
Because they have to pay the reviewer also
yes, yes.
for some fees and like this. So that's why they ask for money.
Uh-huh.
Sir has said exactly what I wanted to say.
Regarding
Just
the
because they're asking you an APC, just because they're demanding it does not mean that they are
Yes, yes.
predatory.
yes, yes.
Right? It's also about
Mm-hmm.
it's primarily about कि मैं तुम्हारा काम मतलब कर दूंगा जल्दी से जल्दी आपका काम हो जाएगा we'll publish you
Yes,
within
sir.
a month
Yes,
or
sir.
we'll publish you in a couple of months. I
Uh-huh.
mean that is something really fishy.
And
We need to
one
that
more
is-
thing, many journals has the broker also. They what they do, they will take articles from you. They will publish article. You need not to worry anything. Only you have to pay money to them only, not the journal.
Yes, yes.
That
Even
kind of
there
things
are
are
So we-
agencies. There are agencies. I have received 2-3 calls from outside Assam, and they call me and inquired, "Will you publish your PhD thesis? We will publish it for 70,000." Then they also said that we can publish without your thesis. We will write your thesis. We will write your article, and we will publish
yes,
it.
yes,
And we will
definitely.
charge
This kind of
20,000
call
for
I have
that.
also received.
So this kind of
Once I received a call, he asked me for. Yes, once I received a call, she asked me for a publication, but I asked her that I don't have any writings now, so how can I publish? She told me that no need to writing anything, sir. You have to just pay the money and your name and address, this affiliation. We will write for you, and we will publish. Like this also I have received.
Okay. Yes.
And one more thing I would like to share with the participants. Can I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Many of us are always thinking about the hiking of our citation. So I want to share about 2-3 things. How can you hike your citation? First of all, your paper should be a quality one. The first criteria. Okay, your paper should be a quality one. There should be some new findings. A write-up should be well mannered, and the grammatical error should not be there like this. Second, if you have to available your journals in the global platform. Suppose if your journal is in if your article is in closed access platform, then you can available the bibliographic information with the abstract. And if it is in an open access platform, then you can available with anyone with the link. So for that, you can open accounts in ResearchGate. Google Scholar automatically index your journal. You can open account in ResearchGate, in Publon, or in one more thing site is there, SSRN. You can upload your already published journal in this SSRN platform also. Then Academia, like this, there are so many things. In the SSRN, what happened? People search in the article and they download the article. And when they write their own article, they cite your article. So if you upload your article in the SSRN, which is open access, not closed access article. Closed access can be available only with bibliographic data and abstract. For open access, I'm telling you, you can upload in the SSRN, and then automatically your citation will be high, your H index will be high, your H10 index will also be high. And there is one more process. If you have ResearchGate ID, if you have Scopus ID, if you have Publon ID, if you have SSRN link ID, you can paste in the signature portion of your email also, so that whenever you send an email to anyone, they will automatically get to know your all the details about your publication details and all these things. And then you can post in the Facebook profile also, or else you can open a website also, like site.google. This is absolutely free. You can open your own website in the site.google, or you can open a blog also, where you have to put all the details of your articles and with the link. So in that way, you can hike or you can increase your citation, because citation will only increase when people will get to know about your article. Otherwise, if you write a good quality article and it is in a closed access journals, but there is no meaning, because nobody, very few people will buy this article. So you have to available at least bibliographic information with the abstract. Yeah.
All right, we don't seem to have any more questions, so I think we can proceed now. In a few few moments, we'll wrap it up. So today we had a very engrossing, stimulating, and informative session, as well as the subsequent discussions, which I found very informative as well as interactive. And
even I had a lot of things to learn.
Yeah, same here. Even I did learn a lot. And Mr. Muralidhar, I must say your presentation was very crisp, no nonsense, and precise.
Yeah.
And it familiarized us with many of the do's and don'ts before proceeding to submit our manuscripts. To sum it up, today Mr. Muralidhar talked about the various facets one must encounter while submitting a manuscript. He discussed about ethical standards and how the onus is on the author to strictly adhere to it, be it self-plagiarism, disguised plagiarism, or taking utmost care while citing someone else. He stressed on the need for staying away from any conflict of interest as far as possible and disclose them if necessary in order to not have it backfire on you. He also went in detail about the content of manuscripts, focusing on issues such as the variant of English to be used, whether British or American, spelling and grammar, legibility, the document format, the structure and layout of manuscripts, maintaining the flow of the narrative, and of course, adhering to the style format of the publisher you are approaching. So Mr. Muralidhar particularly stressed on the need for manuscripts to be universal and comprehensible, and not be so esoteric that they remain within the exclusive domains of some closed communities with sole access to the particular lexicon. This I found to be a very crucial point, as academia often has the stigma of being an ivory tower. He also emphasized on the importance, intent, and the content of a cover letter, and how to effectively pitch your work to the publisher you are approaching. He explained how it is necessary to state the originality of your work and how it adds to the value, and if you have any potential reviewers in mind, or would you like to exclude anyone as reviewer. So to sum it up, it was an exhaustive overview of the checklist one must be cautious about while submitting a manuscript. So we are now reaching the end of today's session, but before we conclude, I'd like to request all the participants to switch on their videos for a while so that we can take a group photograph with today's speaker. Dr. Chanda, if you do the honors.
Bikram, actually, if you can take, you have to take, because I am using my mobile only. So in the mobile, it is not possible because I don't have electricity.
Just give me a moment. I'll change the layout.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is visible on my screen.
Change the layout and
yeah.
Click it on up to 49, so that everyone can accommodate.
Yeah, I did that. Okay, I'll go ahead. All right, done. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank
Mr. Muralidhar,
you,
on behalf
Muralidhar
of,
sir.
sorry?
No, I just say thank you to our resource person.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure.
Mr. Muralidhar, on behalf of the entire Bahana College team, I thank you and I wish you all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you, and wish
And
everyone all the best as well. And
thank you.
thank you for being very patient with me. And yeah, this has been my first time as well. I mean, addressing scholars and addressing most of you people who are much senior than I am. I thank you all. I would like to thank each and everyone individually, but which is not possible now. But to bearing with me all this while and asking me questions, and apart from that also enlightening me about things that I have missed since I last published anything in a journal. So yeah, there has been a lot of learning from for me as well. Thank you. It really means a lot.